This is the most important lesson you may ever learn. I want you to listen to me very carefully, because what I'm about to say may challenge everything you've believed about your struggles, your failures, and your mental state. There are two kinds of people in this world. Those who move through life defeated, tired, complaining, surviving one day at a time. And those who rise, who stand tall in the face of adversity, who smile when others break, and keep walking when others quit. What separates them? It's not intelligence. It's not luck. It's not even education. It's what is called a positive mental attitude. Welcome to Timbuktu Lectures, a production of Kilimanjaro News Network, the authentic voice of Africa. We studied the lives of over 25,000 men and women who achieved extraordinary success, and I can tell you this with mathematical certainty. Every single one, from Nelson Mandela to Aliko Dangote, from Ibrahim to Barack Obama. These men who went from obscurity to greatness. Not by magic. Not by chance. But by mastery. They mastered themselves. They mastered self-discipline, initiative, and definite purpose. These are not traits of the lucky. These are choices of the determined. Each one reached deep and unlocked the vault within, not with permission, not with luck, but with decision. They refused to wait for rescue, refused to beg for validation. And each one, without exception, built a mind of steel. These are the signs that mark the soul of the chosen. Now, let me be clear. This isn't surface-level optimism. It's not about pasting a smile over your pain or forcing good vibes when your soul is breaking. Positive mental attitude is spiritual power. It's the ability to see clearly through the fog of hardship and still move, with faith, with precision, with purpose. It is the only known antidote to failure, and the foundation of all lasting success. The most powerful men of our time, Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama, Aliko Dangote, Ibrahim, Tony Elumelu. They didn't build empires because life was easy, they built because they mastered something harder than business, harder than politics, harder than economics. They mastered the battlefield of the mind. They didn't fear failure, they studied it. They didn't surrender to setbacks, they used them. They didn't collapse under pressure, they transmuted it into fuel. So let me ask you, what is controlling your mind today? Is it fear? Doubt? Self-pity? Resentment? Or is it faith? Purpose? Gratitude? Desire? Because here's the truth, the mind is never neutral. If you don't direct it, the world will. And if you don't master it, the devil surely will. That's a truth you will discover when you finally face your greatest enemy, yourself. Listen closely now, your mental attitude is the only thing in this world over which you have absolute, unchallenged control. You can govern it if you choose. That truth will either set you free or offend your excuses. What you believe, you become. What you think about, you attract. What you dwell on, you eventually live out. You say, I've tried to stay positive, but life keeps hitting me. Then I ask you, what is your definiteness of purpose? Because no man develops a strong mind without a goal that burns in his soul. A goal so consuming, so magnificent, that even failure trembles in its presence. When Nelson Mandela was offered early release after 23 years in prison, on the condition that he renounce his struggle and accept a fragmented peace, he refused. He stayed in that cell another 5 years because his purpose was not freedom for himself, but freedom for his people. That, my friend, is definiteness. His purpose was crystal clear and unshakable. Non-negotiable. That is what carried him not just out of prison, but into the presidency of a nation. Show me a man with no purpose, and I'll show you a man who drifts. And the drifter, my friend, is always in the devil's hands. But show me a man who knows what he wants, who wakes up with fire in his belly and vision in his eyes, and I'll show you a man who cannot be broken. To develop an unbreakable mental attitude, you must decide exactly what you want. Believe, without wavering, that it is yours. And act daily in harmony with that belief. No excuses. No waiting for motivation. No leaning on luck or circumstance. Let me tell you what most won't: the world does not owe you encouragement. The universe does not pause to comfort your weakness. But it will always reward definiteness backed by faith. When a man decides he will not quit, that he will not surrender his mind to doubt, that his thoughts are his to lead, not his enemies to corrupt, then the world begins to bend. People appear. Opportunities emerge. Strength he didn't know he had begins to flood his veins. And failure begins to fear him. But that transformation begins with a secret. Negative thoughts are not visitors, they are invaders. If you tolerate them, they will take your home. If you entertain them, they will eat your purpose from the inside. If you let them linger, they will convince you to quit on the very thing God placed you here on earth to achieve. You must begin with what I call cosmic housekeeping, the relentless audit of your inner world. Examine every thought. Watch every word you whisper to yourself in secret. Because the mind, like a garden, will grow something, whether roses or weeds depends entirely on the keeper. When your thoughts drift into fear, doubt, self-pity, resentment, arrest them on sight. Treat them not as visitors, but as intruders. Would you allow a thief to ransack your home while you sat and watched? Then why tolerate a single thought that steals your power? Replace it, immediately, with gratitude. With vision. With truth. Speak with the authority of one who knows. I was not born to be broken. I was not designed for weakness. I am made of the same force that flung the stars into orbit and breathes through the lungs of those who conquer. Now, let us crush one of the most poisonous lies ever told. I'm just not a positive person. Nonsense. Absolute rubbish. You were trained to think that way, by your environment, your upbringing, your scars. But hear this? What has been learned can be unlearned. What has been programmed can be rewritten. The tool? Repetition. You become what you rehearse. You believe what you speak. Your mental state is nothing but the echo of the thoughts you allow to dominate. So if you seek to forge a mind of steel, start here, control your input. Feed your brain the words of giants. Speak power, especially when you are in pain. Condition your mind daily, not softly, not gently, with fire. There is no shortcut. There is no secret. But there is a path. And that path begins with a single, irrevocable decision. No matter what life throws at me, my attitude is mine. Not my enemies. Not my critics. Not my past's, mine. And that, my friend, is where your power begins, and where weakness dies. The subconscious is always listening. If you wish to build a mind that cannot be shaken, you must master the greatest hidden mechanism of success, autosuggestion. What is it? It is the instrument by which your subconscious mind becomes either a servant of destiny or a slave to destruction. Every word you speak to yourself, true or false, plants a seed. And if repeated, that seed will grow. Into belief. Into habit. Into reality. Success is always preceded by inner conversation. Not with the world, but with yourself. Your internal dialogue is either building the temple of your greatness, or silently digging your grave. The man who rises daily and says, I will win. I will persist. I will not be denied, sets into motion unseen forces. Not by luck, but by the sheer law of mental momentum. But the man who mutters, I'm tired. I can't. Nothing works for me, has already surrendered. He dies spiritually before he leaves the bed. Remember, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But belief is not a spark. It is a fire that must be fanned daily. Your subconscious is not influenced by wishful thinking, it is commanded by repetition tied to emotion. So take 5 minutes each morning to speak life into your vision. Not quietly. Not softly. With fire. With precision. With command. Say aloud. I am powerful beyond measure. My purpose burns brighter than fear. I attract what I need because I expect nothing less. You won't always feel it. That doesn't matter. Feelings are unreliable. Repetition is law. Say it again. And again. And again. Until the voice of victory becomes louder than the voice of doubt. Now let us go deeper. A positive mental attitude cannot survive without its backbone, discipline. You cannot master your emotions if you cannot master your habits. You cannot sustain a high vibration if you are chained to low routines. Discipline is the bridge between vision and fulfillment. Without it, your destiny remains theory. Dreams without discipline are delusions. The greats, Mandela, Obama, Dangote, Ibrahim, they did not rise because of raw talent. They rose because they governed themselves. They understood a profound truth. A man who cannot control his thoughts, his time, or his appetite is a slave, even in a free world. So I ask you, directly, what do you tolerate that weakens your spirit? What distractions have you allowed to steal your rise? What comforts do you cling to that are robbing your crown? Let me remind you, an unbreakable mind is never built in comfort. It is forged in fire. It is built when you say, I will read instead of scroll. I will rise instead of sleep. I will speak power instead of complaint. Each time you choose discipline over ease, your inner power compounds. Each time you surrender to impulse, your potential begins to decay. Discipline is the invisible architecture of freedom. And only the disciplined are free. Now I will reveal to you a secret known only by those who have truly lived. Every adversity contains the seed of an equal or greater advantage. This is not a motivational phrase, it is a law of the universe. If you can believe this, not on Sundays, not when it's easy, but in the fire, then you become invincible. Yes, you may fall, but you will rise. Yes, you may bleed, but you will grow. Yes, you may suffer, but you will never be broken. Why? Because you understand that adversity is not the end. It is the gate you must pass through on the way to elevation. Look back on your own life. The most profound lessons didn't come when everything was working. They came in collapse. In the dark. When everything shattered and you had to decide. Will I drown or will I rise? Train your mind, yes, train it, to say, this pain is preparing me. This failure is redirecting me. This delay is protecting me. Do not ask the storm to stop. Learn to walk through it with purpose in your eyes. And what happens? You become dangerous to defeat. You become spiritually armored. Because no force on earth can destroy a man who grows stronger every time he's hit. Let me give you one more key. You are never a victim of circumstance. You are only ever a victim of your response. Two men can face the same storm. One becomes bitter. The other becomes better. Same fire. Different fate. The difference? Mental attitude. When life slaps you in the face, you get to decide. Will I curse it or will I bless it as a teacher? When someone betrays me, will I become resentful or wiser? When the road gets hard, will I shrink or stretch? You can't control what happens. But you can always decide what it becomes. That's the real secret of a positive mental attitude. It doesn't remove the storm, it redefines it. It teaches you how to walk through the storm with purpose. Be warned. Your attitude, no matter how strong, can be poisoned by the wrong environment. There will be people who mock your mindset. They'll laugh at your optimism. Call you delusional, unrealistic, naive. Ignore them. Most people are addicted to mediocrity. They've made a habit of hopelessness. They're threatened by anyone who dares to rise. They'll try to pull you back down, not because you're wrong, but because your growth exposes their stagnation. You must cut off mental infection at the root. Surround yourself only with those who speak life. Avoid those who feed your fear. Your environment is stronger than your will. If you live in darkness, don't expect your mind to shine. If you are still listening, it means something within you is beginning to shift. It tells me you're no longer content with survival. You want mastery. And mastery begins in the mind. But a strong mind without a definite purpose is like a sword without a target, sharp, but directionless. Without a burning aim, the mind drifts. Without a clear goal, the mind wanders like a leaf in the wind, pushed by fear, pulled by doubt. You must anchor your mind to something greater than comfort. You must wake up each day with a reason so vivid, so personal, so soul-deep that nothing can knock it loose, not fear, not fatigue, not even failure. Your definite chief aim is not just a goal. It's your identity in action. It is who you are becoming. It's the obsession that shapes your thoughts, your habits, your destiny. Mandela didn't just want freedom, he embodied it. Dangote didn't just want to be rich, he envisioned African self-reliance, and then became the structure to deliver it. Ibrahim didn't just succeed in telecom, he used it to shift the entire conversation about African governance. They didn't try. They lived it. They were possessed by purpose. Ask yourself, what do I want so badly that I'm willing to suffer for it? What would I pursue even if it meant being misunderstood, ridiculed, doubted, or alone? What kind of life would make every breath feel worth the pain? Once you find that answer, burn it into your subconscious. Read it every morning and night. Speak it aloud with emotion. Write it in stone. Because vague desires produce vague results. But clarity commands the universe. And once you are clear, once your purpose is fixed in your mind like the North Star, your mental attitude becomes not just a shield, but a sword. Listen to me, and listen with the seriousness of a man receiving the terms of his own freedom. The man who possesses a purpose, and protects his mental attitude with vigilance, becomes unstoppable. He may be delayed, but he is never denied. He may fall, but he rises higher. He may struggle, but he never retreats. Why? Because he knows what the world forgets. Attitude is the hinge upon which the doors of destiny swing. It is your attitude, not your conditions, that determines whether failure becomes your fuel or your finish line. Whether a loss becomes a lesson or a life sentence. Whether hardship breaks you or builds you. But here's the law, your attitude must be guarded, like a warrior guards his blade. That means you cut off anything that weakens your spirit. Negative people. Toxic media. Victim thinking. Gossip. Excuses. Mental laziness. That whispering in a voice that tells you you're not enough. Whatever enters your ears, enters your spirit. Guard it. Own it. Master it. Because no man, no circumstance, no betrayal has the power to define you unless you hand them the pen. That power is yours. And yours alone. Now, let me speak, not just to your mind, but to your spirit. As a fellow traveler. As someone who bled on the road to clarity. You are not here by accident. You were designed with purpose. There is something inside you the world needs, not someday, but now. Your existence is proof that your assignment is real. But it will not manifest if your inner world is choked with fear, doubt, and excuse. So what must you do? Cleanse the temple of your mind. Flood your thoughts with truth. Read the biographies of giants until your excuses suffocate. Speak power over yourself until doubt flees. Take bold, imperfect action, daily. And above all, think only those thoughts that build, that expand, that elevate you. Because every time you do, you grow. And every time you surrender to fear, you shrink. That is the test, every single day. Let me now hand you a rule that has never betrayed me. Act as if it were impossible to fail. This is not fantasy. It is strategy. Fear has murdered more dreams than failure ever could. The anticipation of defeat has silenced more kings than the battle itself. So I ask you, what if failure was no longer an option? What if you declared, I cannot fail, I can only learn. I cannot lose, I can only adjust. I cannot break, I can only bend and return stronger. That, my friend, is the birth of the unbreakable mind. Because now, you no longer hesitate. You speak. You create. You command. And the world, yes, the world, responds. Why? Because certainty is rare. Confidence is magnetic. And those who possess both become leaders, not by title, but by spirit. Let me make one thing clear. No man ever succeeded alone. But no man ever succeeded who waited for others to believe in him first. You must believe when they laugh. Stand when they sit. Speak when they mock. Lead even as you're still becoming the thing you speak of. Because the world doesn't follow perfection. It follows conviction. So now I ask you directly, without apology. Will you decide to live this message? Because if you do, here is what you now possess. A mind that sees opportunity in every obstacle. A voice that speaks power over your life, every day. A purpose so personal, so burning, that fear cannot breathe near it. A discipline so consistent, so sharp, that weakness becomes irrelevant. And a mindset so radiant, so unshakable, so charged with fire, that not even the gates of hell can stand against your rise. This is not fantasy. This is not hype. These are spiritual laws. They worked for Mandela. They worked for Dangote. They worked for Ibrahim. And they will work for you, or if you work them. So the real question is not, will they work? The real question is, will you? Will you rise each morning and claim your attitude as your weapon? Will you speak power, even when your circumstances are weak? Will you persist, even when your soul begs for comfort? Because if you do, you won't just build success. You'll build a legacy. A life worth remembering. A life of greatness. A life that echoes through generations long after your name is spoken. That is the power of an unbreakable, positive mental attitude. And it is yours, if you decide. So I ask you now, not as a speaker, not as a voice, but as your witness. Will you decide? Because in that sacred moment of decision, your destiny begins. And from this day forward, let every thought, every word, every action you take declare to the world. I am unshakable. I am unstoppable. I am unbreakable. And so it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, congratulations. Now, take a moment. Breathe. What you just heard wasn't motivation. It was a mirror. A mirror held up to your potential. A mirror held up to your mind. You were not just spoken to, you were summoned. So now the real question stands in front of you, naked and demanding. What will you do with what you now know? Because here's the truth, nothing changes until you change. Not the government. Not your boss. Not your relationship. You. You've just been handed a blueprint. Now the building is on you. You've heard that the mind is a battlefield. That your thoughts are weapons. That your attitude is the gatekeeper of your destiny. So today, I don't want you to clap. I want you to decide. Decide that this isn't going to be another moment where you feel inspired for a few hours and then return to the same defeated thinking tomorrow. No. Let this be the day you draw the line. Let this be the day your mind becomes your kingdom, not your prison. Let this be the day you say, enough. Enough of drifting. Enough of waiting. Enough of handing your power to fear, to people, to past wounds. You were not created to be small. You were not sent here to blend in, pay bills, complain, and die. You were born for a purpose that's bigger than your pain. You were designed to build, to create, to rise. And so I ask you, what are you going to do today to protect your attitude? What are you going to cut off to defend your mind? What will you now declare, every morning, to your subconscious? And most of all, what is your definite purpose, and are you willing to become it? You don't need to know all the steps. You don't need perfect conditions. You need one thing, a decision backed by daily discipline. So today, as you leave here, walk out differently. Walk out not just inspired, but armed. Walk out with a vow, my attitude belongs to me. And I will guard it like my future depends on it, because it does. One day, you will look back on this day and say, that's when it started. That's when I stopped negotiating with weakness. That's when I stopped performing for approval. That's when I became unshakable. Because no one is coming. But you are here. And now is always the moment. So go. Build. Burn the excuses. Rise with purpose. And let the world feel the force of a mind made of steel. Goodbye. And more importantly, good decision. Timbuktu Lectures is a production of Kilimanjaro News Network, the authentic voice of Africa. Broadcasting in Swahili, Arabic, Hausa, English, and French. Don't forget to like, share and scan our QR code to access our YouTube channel and website. Revisit this lecture again and again. Share with your focus group, mastermind, friends, and family.